Welcome to Diary of a Medium Stories from the Spirit World podcast. So today is where I bring to you some stories that some of my listeners have actually sent to me. So I love to hear your own stories and to share other people's journeys, things they've experienced. So that is what I'm going to do today in this episode. So I want to start with a story that was sent to me by Melissa. So Melissa said, while I feel like Spirit helps guide my life daily now, it wasn't always that way. I was in a difficult place, trying to switch careers, manage a growing family, keep my original career afloat, and I decided just to pray for help and guidance on what to do because I just couldn't carry it all. Sounds familiar, right? As I was drifting off to sleep, it felt like I had been gently lifted to the heavens. It was a peaceful feeling I have never felt before. I then heard a male voice tell me it was time to let go. And I knew it was time to leave my career that no longer served me. At that point, Spirit quickly went to work and I was led on the path to study and become a psychic medium. How amazing is that? I feel like I need a bit more of that story, Melissa. I feel like we need a part two to, what's happening with you now. Thank you so much. And it's interesting, isn't it, that, feeling guided like that, and especially to leave a career, it's such a big thing. And certainly I resonate with some of what you said there, because before I stepped into this work, I was running my beauty business and I had built that up. I had regular clients. It was doing really well. And, on the outside, it did not make sense for me to give up that career. It just didn't. But after about 18 months of doing both, I decided to let my beauty business go and I have never looked back. So I have another story that was sent to me by Sal. So Sal says, I was walking my dog one morning. It was early, dark, and cold. I was almost home and hurrying to get back to the kids to get ready for school. I had to cross a main road to get home. To my right, a construction truck was approaching me. I couldn't see the traffic on my left because the traffic in the lane was already backed up and obscuring my view. I was preoccupied about getting home quickly rather than waiting for the traffic to clear. And at the last minute, I decided to walk out in front of the truck in an attempt to make it all the way across the road. When I got halfway across the road, I was able to see the oncoming car from my left. This was a car that was being blocked by the traffic, and I knew I probably couldn't make it, but I decided to try anyway. In the moment I stepped out to cross the road, I could feel something physically pulling me back, even though there was nothing there. My physical body was being held back and I just couldn't move. It was like I was stuck and frozen to the spot. It took me a couple of seconds to gather my thoughts and realize what was going on. And in that moment, I surrendered. And only then, when I surrendered, was I able to move my body again. I waited in the middle for the traffic in both directions to clear, and then I crossed. As I was waiting, I was obviously freaked out by what had just happened, but I knew, I had a knowing that this wasn't mine. It wasn't my voice, but what was in my head and what was said is, we stopped you because it was not your time yet. You can imagine that I'm now on this new crusade to figure out exactly what the hell happened. Well, maybe you'll never get any answers, and maybe you will. I think that deep down, we know the answers, right? We just have to make our logical brain get on board with the fact that someone was looking out for you that day and knew better than you. They knew better than you. They knew that you weren't going to make it across that road, and they held you back. What an amazing story, Sal. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Fairy has sent me a beautiful story about all the signs and symbols and things that have happened to her since she lost her partner, Lane, to suicide. She actually starts this message by saying there was seriously a lot of rage and pain from the suicide for me to deal with. I found a black ribbon probably the day he died, randomly found in front of my library door. There was just a black ribbon that was all alone. I found it and I put it in my pocket. I'm not sure why. But then I found out about his death. I automatically put it on. It's still around my neck to this very day. The power went out once in Turback in AZ, I think Arizona, the day I found out. October 19th. I felt him enter my heart chakra. This was an amazing turn of events. I have never felt something so amazing and loving at the same time. I felt this energy go from my left eyelashes and then my heart, and I felt this most amazing, warm and loving feeling that almost physically knocked me over. I wasn't meditating even. This date means something important to me now, every year. One night when I was in bed, it was cold and I didn't want to get up and turn on the heater. I actually asked Lynn, can you turn the heater from me? But no, he didn't. But the next night, when I was in bed, cold again, the mirror moved in the middle of the night to hit the space heater right where the on button was, because I was cold like the night before. I found a heart sticker on the floor in a place I was standing when he first tried to kiss me. All the clairvoyant flashes while I'm driving, the images through my mind, and sometimes around people and animals, they just look like sparkling stars in the air. Just the other night, something funny happened. Just the other night, my ex I'm living with at the moment came to my bedroom door to tell me that something funny had happened. We both heard a loud thump, and we both turned and looked and almost said at the same time, "Oh, that's just Lane." Seeing the word lanes or lanes a lot as well at first was a thing. One time in a book I was reading by his favorite author, the word lanes was read 7 or 8 times on that one page. My phone automatically set its alarm for 7 a.m. when I didn't set it. I was just thinking about that the day before, setting the alarm and then forgetting. Actually, today I saw 3 bottles of shampoo jump off the side of the tub onto the floor. There was no explanation of why that happened. On the 4th of July, I felt a tap on my arm right before the fireworks started. I could see the fireworks from my bedroom window. And ever since, I have had more tactile interactions with him almost all of the time. The day before my car battery died, I felt several taps and an electric feeling around my head, so much so that my hair was sticking up. The next day, my car battery died. When we got out of the car, a butterfly flew right in front of us as though to say, "Sorry, kiddo, I was trying to tell you." On the table where I keep the things for him, I saw in front of my own eyes an empty water bottle jump up and down on its own. Honestly, I felt his energy many, many times in my room. And once it actually felt like his energy grabbed me by the shoulders. I was so goosebumped, and seriously, I was wearing something to bed with holes in it. And there was no one there in bed with me, but I felt like a finger poked through the hole. Spirit can be very cheeky. The most tickles ever were when I announced to him that I finally got promoted to full-time hours, and I told him where I was working, and no one was there. Nothing happened, but that night I could hardly sleep. I could feel these tickles and touches throughout the night. I woke up one morning with the word cherries in my head, and then I found the brand Cherry Lane I now keep with his things. Orange and green in beautiful shades showed up in my life after I asked him to send me colour because I love colours. The word snap we agreed on one morning after he passed. I saw that everywhere. He signed to me, including written in a description in a book on how to do it. Beautiful images of him in the clouds, an ear, an eye, his face, my face, tiny angels floating over and slowly breaking apart. How did my trunk of my car open when no one was there? There was some issue with my husband's car over the weekend, and we mentioned something about his truck and the mechanism to open it. 3 days later at work, someone jumps in and tells me, "Your trunk's open." I physically feel him touch me in a physical sense on and off all day long, and a dime literally fell and gently bounced off my head while I was walking through a doorway. In the kitchen while I was eating, I felt something brush my neck and turned around, and there was a green and orange striped pot holder on the floor behind me. Wait, it was on a hook. There was no way it could have fallen by itself. Other things that I have witnessed move right in front of me often in the kitchen. A cabinet door shuts by itself. I dropped a full water bottle on the floor because it rolled off the counter and onto the floor. I couldn't pick it up right away and went to the sink, and when I turned around, it was back on the counter. Once I saw a kiss mark on my driver's side window on my car appear. I touched it with my finger and it disappeared like it was never there. It was very muffled and thin, but once, when I was angry at him, I actually heard him say it through the white noise of the space heater in someone else's voice, "Girl, you're something else," because I was shouting and screaming at him in the mirror. One day I was home alone and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I also had some music on and started dancing around to it. I danced to the whole song and felt uplifted and light. The next day or so later, there were a bunch of feathers all over the spot where I'd been dancing. I collected them all in a little plastic bag. Now there is something that happens that I call the boop. Anytime at night when I'm falling asleep in bed while watching TV, I will feel a pressure hit me on my solar plexus and wake me right up. It's an undeniable feeling that simultaneously makes me laugh out loud and kind of freak out a bit too. I was serving a patron, passing her a book across the desk, when all of a sudden I felt my bangs whoosh over, and the patron saw it too. She actually said, "It looks like there wasn't just a fairy in your hair." That fairy was Lane. The biggest one ever that finally led me to tell my story about Lane to my husband, he is now my ex, on Christmas morning. I made myself breakfast. It was to be a sausage, egg scrambled, and a piece of toast with beans and cheese on it. Some Mexican name that I forgot. Anyway, I got everything ready to cook and went to the bathroom. Before turning the skillet on, I was only back from the bathroom a moment when I noticed something funny about the time. Anyway, I came back into the kitchen. There were 2 eggs done over easy on the skillet, and the sausage was done perfect too. There was no one else around. There was literally no one in the kitchen anywhere. And I don't usually eat eggs over easy. I mean, I like them okay, but I prefer scrambled. I was absolutely dumbfounded. In fact, I asked an online medium friend of mine and told her what happened, and she pretty much confirmed that Lane did that because he wanted to give me a Christmas present. One morning on my drive to work, I noticed it was hot. In fact, it was so hot, I said aloud that it feels weird and dry and itchy. Then I noticed the heater was on, and I had not turned it on. Lane was teasing me because I was wearing a sweater, even though it wasn't really that cold. I did finally dream about him swimming together in a pool, and I said, "Let's kiss underwater," and as soon as it happened, I woke up. Once at Christmas time, I went over and took my daughter on the couch, and afterwards when I walked by the tree, an ornament jumped off and landed on the floor. And another time I was in the same room with my daughter and we were colouring and creating, and I heard the chair scrape across the tile. I didn't pay any attention nor mind to it since the sound came from the next room, but when I got up to leave, I saw the stool had been moved away from the counter, and no one was there. I had sat on that stool earlier, but I made sure that I put it back. A kitchen towel on the floor when it was carefully placed on the counter to be put away. A selfie on my phone, and often my eyes were closed, a sign of spirit. And on December 6th, while I was making the bed in a trance-like state because I was healing from a cold and tucking in the sheets, I was muttering something about angels healing, and in that moment, the chimes on my bedroom window tinkled as though the air blew through them. The chimes were kept inside, away from any wind or air, so I knew that this was spirit moving them. There was no fan, no window open, and no air blowing at all. In fact, I deliberately had these chimes inside, like this is an experiment. After this happened, I tried to record it, but it was too late. I debunked it by throwing pillows and blankets around to see if it was something that I did, but the chimes didn't move then. Wow, so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that stories and the signs and everything. And I love that we ended on, the wind chime, because that's one of my biggest stories about how my dad contacted me through the wind chime inside the house just days after he passed. It's interesting you should mention about trying to capture that, isn't it? Because I remember at the time when that happened to me feeling like this was just for me, and if I was to try and take a picture or have some evidence, that it would actually just stop, because it wasn't meant to be for anyone else but for me. Amazing signs and so much proof of life after death. The soul, the essence of that person still resides with you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll catch you next time on Stories from the Spirit World, Diary of a Medium. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to Diary of a Medium, Stories from the Spirit World. If something in today's episode has sparked something within you and you are curious about your own spiritual gifts, then check out my website on how I can support you. If you have your own story to share, then please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to support me, you can subscribe, leave a review, or simply share this with a friend. So until next time, trust yourself, trust spirit, and keep listening to the whispers from the universe. Bye for now.